All right. Here we are back, everybody, with Inside Update, a show brought to you by InsideInvestigator.org. We are a nonprofit newsroom, and we are here to chat about a new investigation by Alex Appel about Job Corps. We're also going to talk about the bear hunt. It's been a topic for many years in Connecticut. We're going to talk about, honestly, some of our Q4 end of year fundraising stuff as well. We are a nonprofit. We are entirely reader supported. There's a lot of great reasons to support us, not the least of which is Alex herself here to support her investigative work. Let's dig into it with this newest piece. It's called Job Corps, Controversial Job Training Program Might Shutter. Things seem to be coming apart at the seams, Alex. It is a tough read. What is going on here?
Yeah, so Job Corps is this program that's been around for literally decades. It was part of Lyndon B. Johnson's War on Poverty. If I'm remembering that correctly, it's in the article. But in this or spring 2025, so this spring, the Department of Labor under the Trump administration, as we all know, decided that it probably was not worth the money that was being put into it and decided to close it. Now, that case is caught up in courts right now. So it's kind of in this limbo where sorry, just to backtrack. This program was established by Congress, so it can't be closed by the Department of Labor, but they can completely defund it, which is what they're trying to do. And now it's tangled in courts. And so this article was kind of looking at what is Job Corps and what are the merits of the argument that, this program should stay open versus this program maybe should close? And
there are some pretty clear opinions on both sides. Obviously, for the purposes of your reporting, you did get Senator Blumenthal to chat with you about kind of this broad strokes. He's pushing to keep Job Corps open, to be clear. And on the other side, it really came down to a lot of data that seems to be the basis for why there is a push to do away with it. Let's start with the view of why people are arguing this should stay open. And if you could also mention who didn't talk to you, because there were a lot of people that didn't open their mouths and speak up to defend their own livelihoods here.
Yeah, well, so for starters, we're publishing this now, but we've been reporting on this for months, and for months I've had a very hard time reaching the most relevant parties, the Job Corps centers and the Department of Labor. So the people who run the program and the people who want to close it directly. And towards the end of this reporting process, obviously there was that government shutdown, and that's when I saw this very unique method of like these people who I hadn't heard from for weeks would be like, "Oh, I just forwarded it to the Department of Labor." And it's like, "Oh, okay, that's very convenient."
Because they're closed. They're not
Yeah.
going to be able to get back to me at all. So thank
No,
you for not taking responsibility.
yeah, yeah. So in terms of who wouldn't get back to me, a lot of people. In terms of, sorry, you asked what the main arguments are.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start. I guess on both sides of this, but
yeah.
I want to understand, and I think obviously there's a ton of detail on this investigation, but laying out the broad strokes argument, I think, is helpful for folks to understand why they should go and read the piece, but also just so they have some talking points as they're out and about. And I do expect this to be bigger news in the future when this does come to pass. It seems fairly inevitable, but maybe that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah. Now, so the people in favor of Job Corps, well, first off, what is Job Corps? It's a very holistic approach to jobs training. And what I mean by holistic is for many of the people enrolled, they offer housing, they offer living stipends, they offer, you live in a center and you get food and you get room and you get psychological support and medical support. Not everyone does this. Many people don't live at the centers. But what it is, the argument in favor of it is you take some of the most vulnerable young adults, and it is young adults. There's an age limit on this, and you give them things that they need to thrive or to learn. how to, like, they can get education degrees, including GEDs, and they can be supported in some ways through like associate's degrees. They can get certifications to work in different fields. They can get, opportunities to work at local companies or like local Walmarts. And so it's this, I don't want to say feel good, but it's this approach where you support someone through all of their needs, in theory. And let's just be honest, there people who are struggling for a reason, and sometimes those needs are just a little too severe for this program.
Mhm.
Um, you'll see this in the story. There are a lot of people who have very severe mental health problems. Um, but the people against it make the argument that, the people who finish this, most people don't finish the program to like the successful like graduation marker that was established when Job Corps was established. Many people don't graduate altogether. There are some serious security threats at these centers. There are some serious injuries that go wrong. And it's just really expensive. And there's a question of, is it worth the money that taxpayers put into it? And does it deliver on everything it promises? So that's kind of like the two sides where you're supporting people, young adults who, don't have these resources, but also it's not an effective use of resource and it's not necessarily a safe environment.
Could you dig into that a little more? Because I think that the one of the driving forces when we first looked at this months and months ago was this report that we needed to then secure data for of things were going really sideways. We're talking about hundreds of quote serious incidents at these facilities, and that's just in Connecticut. I mean, this is a national program. We're not talking about all of the issues that have happened across the country, of which I understand there are many. But in Connecticut alone, there are two Job Corps centers, and at each of them, I mean, we've seen, like I said, hundreds of issues. Correct?
Yeah, well, serious issues. Then there are also minor infractions that we didn't really focus on in the story, and to be honest, those are things like attendance issues. So
Right.
not incredibly eye catching. But yeah, some of these issues are the thing that first caught my eye, or I think everyone's eye on the team when I mentioned it, was there was a death at a Job Corps center. Turned
Yeah.
out to be a suicide, so it wasn't like someone died because of an accident, but that's still a very serious thing, and it calls into question, the are we really capable of taking care of people who have such needs at these centers? And so these serious incidents, they have a huge range. Some of them are, some of the incidents that happen at these Job Corps centers are COVID violations, and that's just who knows what that means, especially in 2025. But some of them are sexual assaults, a fair bit of larceny,
Yep.
um, and other allegations that these are dangerous environments. Now, if anyone's interested in this, we actually have a link to the FOI documents in the story. So you can go through and you can see the data itself. And you can also read the incident reports for, I believe, the assaults, sexual assaults, breaches of security, and death. And there are probably a few other categories. Oh, and like incidents that attract bad media attention, if I'm
Mhm.
recalling it. And so, yeah, you have a lot of instances. And then you also have a mismatch between the number of instances reported internally to the Department of Labor and the number of times you call the police. So another thing that's referenced is a police log at, I could only get it for the Hartford Center. Um, but about how, I think there's only like 2 incidents involving law enforcement mentioned at the Hartford Center during a period of time that we got documents for, but there were over 50 calls. Some of these were animal
Yeah.
complaints. Some of them ended up being nothing, but a lot of them were, again, a lot of theft, a lot of larceny.
Yeah.
So
Let
the
me
this
read from this section too, because I think, laying it out here between January 1st, 2023 and June 9th, 2025, 399 serious incidents were reported at Connecticut Job Corps centers alone. 5 reported sexual assaults, 32 assaults, 48 breaches of safety and security, 52 serious illness and injury, and 76 drug-related incidents. So stacking these all together, I agree. I think it was very wise of you to point out that we have the primary documents linked here as well. It's one of the things that we pride ourselves on. There's nothing more frustrating than going to a news website where you click on, the report, and when you click on it, it just takes you to another article instead of the actual underlying document. It's something that we take pride in, even if it hurts our SEO. We want you to be able to access the primary documents. But these numbers kind of stand out. The behavioral thing, I understand there are underlying causes though, right? I mean, this isn't saying like, hey, you go to these facilities and all of a sudden this group of people is experiencing problems. In fact, the goal is to help people who likely are already experiencing significant hardship in their life. And the hope is that this program is able to lift them up and out of that situation. So, the noble ends, I suppose, but the graduation rates, the cost, I mean, when you talk about the graduation rates, I mean,
can I just add one more thing too?
Please.
Not everyone who goes to these programs is going through a mental health crisis, but if you're with someone who is in a mental health crisis, you have to live with that person a lot of the times.
Yep.
Assaults, like there are people who are being assaulted. It's like you're at the center, and a lot of the time it's the faculty, but a lot of the time you have student on student problems too. So even if you're, completely, emotionally well and you just want this program, you're signing up for other people's issues too sometimes.
Yeah. That's a really difficult position, especially when, there are, I'd say, limited options, I suppose, or at least stuff like this where it's so comprehensive. And, we'll talk about the financial element of that and shortly. I just want to flag this again, the graduation rates, right? People are going in there to get, Blumenthal talks about this in the quotes that you included, right? We have a job shortage of X, we want to fill it, but people aren't leaving this facility to go on and do what it's intended to do.
Yeah. So, I mean, just for starters, there are 2 definitions of graduation that Job Corps uses. There's one where you complete the entire program, and then there's one where you reach a milestone. And so most people don't do either. But these milestones aren't necessarily fulfilling. One of the biggest justifications is we are missing workers in critical fields, and Job Corps helps people get certifications in critical fields. That's true. That's an option. But most people who enter the program don't enter those critical fields. And most people who graduate, it's hard to tell exactly where they go. But when you look at median income after graduation, I think it's fair to say a lot of them aren't nurses, and we've heard Job Corps directors talk about how they have direct, partnerships with local Walmarts. That's great for the Walmart, but, that's not the shortage need in the state, right? And so that's one component where the people who do complete the program, it's great for them. They get something out of it, but it doesn't necessarily fill that void that the state needs in its economy. And then the other side is most people don't complete the program. And by complete the program, I mean a milestone even. So, New Haven is considered the 5th best Job Corps center in the country. That is something that the director said at a press conference in June, and I couldn't get a hold of him to verify, but that sounds like I trust him not to be lying about that. I'll take him at his word in that case. And 36% of students graduate through the traditional means in New Haven, which is, 36% for the 5th best center in the country is, one thing Blumenthal does is he compares it to college and community college specifically. Those tend to have higher graduation rates overall.
Yeah. The last category, I guess, in this investigation, and maybe we could touch briefly on kind of some of the alternatives, right? This is obviously a federally funded program. So there are some alternatives just with the political turnover that's happening here. But money wise, the costs, it said in here in 2023, the Hartford Center cost taxpayers $14 million, while the New Haven Center cost taxpayers $11 million. If Job Corps facilities run until the end of 2025, it will cost an estimated $1.7 billion with an estimated $213 million deficit. Those are obviously the 30,000 foot level numbers for the entire country. Could you talk a little bit about the costs per student in the state of Connecticut?
Yes, well, that's the one of the most interesting parts of the story is how they calculate those costs. So when you have a school district and you're trying to calculate how much does it cost to educate a student, I believe, and please someone correct me if I'm wrong, what you do is you take the overall cost of running the school and you divide it by the number of students, right? For Job Corps, they give you two different numbers: the cost for per student per year, and then the cost per graduate student, and the or student who graduates by these different definitions. Now, the issue with that is you don't actually know how much more money goes into a graduate than a normal student, or a non-graduating student, right? So for every student that enters a Job Corps center in Connecticut, you're paying in New Haven, it's about $153,000 per student. In Hartford, it's $275,000 per student.
Wow.
That's a lot of money. Most of them are not graduating. But for every student who does graduate, it's essentially the taxpayer has to invest in Hartford, or has to invest $324,000 in Hartford to get one graduating student. And then in New Haven, that's $193,000 for one graduating student, and it's every year. And the programs are also longer than a year. So it's actually, there's not a lot of transparency in how much each taxpayer is paying per student, which is a very interesting thing. I'm not quite sure why they report it that way. I don't know if they have other data. Again, I could not get a hold of people. But for a jobs training program, that's really expensive. And now Blumenthal compares this to the cost of tuition at college. And it's true, many colleges, including state schools, cost a lot of money, but it's not the state that's paying for that money. It's not the taxpayer that's paying for that money. Or maybe they're paying for part of it, maybe they're paying for scholarships. But, when I went to school, my housing was not covered by, I went to school in New York, it was not covered by the nice residents of New York State. And I'm sure some people can look at tuition and be like, oh my God, that's outrageous, that's terrible. Or, oh, that's just what it is. But like, it wasn't coming from, Connor,
Right.
you weren't paying for my tuition, right?
Right. To my knowledge, no, that's correct.
Yes. I got some, I definitely got scholarships, but it was a private school, so it was a
Yep.
little, yeah, I don't think you were.
That's
We got
that's a
federal
relief.
grants, actually, so that's a whole other
From my
topic.
family. I'm glad that we weren't subsidizing that without our knowledge.
I guess you were subsidizing probably a few of the federal grants, so I appreciate that.
For
Thank you
sure.
for that.
Okay. Yes. Very fair analysis there. Before we wrap this up on this topic, at least, obviously, I want to encourage people to go and read the rest of this investigation, look at those numbers, and Alex, I know, went through a lot of hoops to track all of this information down. This was not an easy fight to extract this number, let alone analyze it on the other end. And I want to throw out there, that broader landscape as well. And you write about this in the final section, that because this is driven by a government program, it is subject to changing political winds.
Yeah.
So one of the things that folks might be aware of is in April, and you include this in the article, President Trump put in an executive order about preparing Americans for high-paying, skilled trade jobs of the future, which is basically an apprenticeship program instead of this jobs training program. So it's, kind of, hey, we're going to try this different approach. I'll be curious to see how that rolls out, especially in Connecticut. It seemed like there were were not a lot of specifics about how that's going to impact the Constitution state specifically. Is that correct? A fair characterization?
Yes, and I should say the federal government has been supporting apprenticeship programs for many years. So, I didn't reach out to the White House. Maybe I should have. I somehow don't think they would have gotten back to me with this, but maybe if I could, I would ask. When I read that, I assumed it was doubling down and expanding apprenticeships programs across the country. And even though there are many that do exist in Connecticut, this year there was a bunch of grants awarded to statewide ones. Connecticut did not get any. I don't know if we applied for any. Um, I will say Senator Blumenthal, when he spoke to me, he's obviously on a very different side of the political aisle. He did think that was a good thing to do. He did think these apprenticeship programs were good. And I should note, if you go to, I think it's apprentice.gov, the program is run very differently than through Job Corps. You're not, in almost every case, you're not living at a facility. They offer childcare support. But I think a lot of proponents of Job Corps will tell you there's room for both, but there's no need to get rid of Job Corps. While the opponents say we have better alternatives. So why not lean into the one we think works better as opposed to the one that has issues?
For sure.
Not to say the apprenticeship program doesn't have its own
No,
issues.
I
I can't
understand
speak
that.
to that.
Yeah. Well, maybe something, if there are more opportunities in Connecticut, maybe something we would look into in the future. And obviously, I'll throw out that from our perspective as a nonprofit with a narrow mission to eradicate corruption through investigative journalism, yeah, we're going to call out all programs that have these kind of problems in them, and we want to dig deeper on those, because when people have violence initiated on them, or their wealth is diminished by force or fraud, when consent is violated, that needs to be brought out into the public eye. And that is absolutely vitally important. So thank you for your work on this one to tease out not just the numbers, but also some of the wrongdoing that we could get a hold of via those reports. Your effort there is commendable to really fight through a lot of bureaucracy during that difficult time. I want to throw out there, I guess, really briefly, just a pitch for supporting our nonprofit as well, because this work, investigative journalism, is free to read, not free to produce, right? A lot of what we do is time intensive. It's detail oriented. We're not throwing out 250 word articles that just kind of give you a smattering of, here's kind of our 2 cents on what happened. We got stuff like what Alex is creating, which is a really deep dive to provide a comprehensive understanding so that you can make informed decisions in your life, so you recognize when corruption is happening, and ideally that we can all be on the same page about getting rid of it, which is absolutely essential. So just really briefly, I'll throw out there, if that is compelling to you, if you believe that trustworthy local information is important to improving your community, head over to insideinvestigator.org. $5 a month makes a huge difference for us. $50,000 a month also makes a big difference for us. So, don't hold back is all I'm saying. We're doing some really great stuff, and our reporting team is truly, truly wonderful. It's a privilege to work with these folks. Comment here from someone on YouTube. Great job again. So kind words to you, Alex. In our last couple minutes, I want to talk about bear hunting. Because you wrote about this. There's stuff going on. Listen, you could see, I look at my background, right? Like I'm clearly not an unbiased observer of hunting culture. And we could talk about that. Maybe we should have a separate podcast that's just about hunting. But
I love that. I love that.
Right? It would be a lot of fun. And the bottom line, I've never shot a bear. I don't know if you have. I'm a whitetail hunter. That's food that my family eats throughout the year. But Connecticut is in a position. Bear hunting is currently very much not allowed, and there has been a aggressive debate now, certainly since 2022 when we started publishing, and this has been going on for a while now as bear encounters increase. There's a department in Connecticut that is continuing to get involved. They're looking for feedback. Talk to us, Alex. What's going on here?
Yeah, so Connecticut has I think it's fair to say, a bear problem. And right now, the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection has, well, they had 3 listening sessions already about bear management plans. The 4th one is coming up on December 16th. It's in West Hartford. You don't have to live in the area to go. You do have to RSVP. But yeah, so human bear encounters in Connecticut have really gone up both within the state and within the compared to other states. And now it's worth noting in like the Northeast region, there are only 3 states that completely block bear hunting: Connecticut, Delaware, and Rhode Island. Now, the fun thing about Delaware and Rhode Island is they don't have bears there. They don't have any bears. So Connecticut's in this really interesting situation where we have more bear encounters per capita than any other state in the region, even though many states have many more bears and many more dense population centers than us. And the question is how to manage it. Deep has been running in educational campaigns for years now, and the problem just gets worse and worse. Which is honestly crazy to think about. You know, when I was in high school, I remember if we left our garage door open in my house, a black bear would walk in. Um,
Yep.
so yeah, but it's controversial because a lot of people like bears. I would recommend anyone who goes to these sessions read the State of the Bear report that Deep releases every year. There's one, I think it was released last month, and it covers information on 2024. And the reason I say that is, you know, at the last listening session, and full disclosure, I wasn't there. I'm getting this from a Fox 61 report. I think they did a good job, just credit where credit is due. You're going to hear some things at the session that aren't necessarily true. And I don't think people are saying that to lie or to be malicious, but, you know, it's a very contentious topic. It's a very,
It's
and like,
emotional.
it's
There's a lot
emotional.
of people who really, I've had bear encounters in the wild, and despite the fact that they are terrifying in some ways, they are incredible to watch. I mean, they're beautiful. I understand the element on both sides here. And I think what we will do too, I'll ask Joe to put a link to your most recent coverage about the public sessions or listening sessions as well. So folks can, the RSVP link to that last session, which you said is, again, going to be on December 16th. That's a Tuesday at the Elmwood Community Center, New Britain Ave in West Hartford. People can RSVP there, but you can also, like you said, read the reports, get the history. We've written a couple bear articles since 2022. It's worth getting an idea of what that trend looks like in Connecticut,
Yeah.
so you can make your voice heard.
Yeah. Another thing to mention about the whole the proposals to introduce a limited bear hunting season, it's just something to keep in the back of people's mind is, one, no animal in this country has ever gone extinct because of sports hunting. But 2, there are not a lot of hunters in Connecticut at all, which is a whole other topic. So, you know, when you're talking about feasibility, you know, it's not just, you know, just I don't want to tell people what to do. I think you alluded towards this. I'm a much less successful hunter than you, but I'm a hunter. You're a hunter. I used to, you know, I used to live in like the bear capital of the world, Kodiak, Alaska. Very different type of bears,
Yes.
but yeah, there's just a lot of passion, and it's an important issue. And yeah, bears are, you know, really majestic, incredible creatures, but you know, so are humans. And sometimes creatures are in conflict. So give your 2 cents. Give your 2 cents. There's a lot of proposed solutions. Hunting is one of them. There are others. Everyone should go if they can and listen and, you know, form your own opinion.
Absolutely. I will also throw out a pitch for one of Catherine's investigations about the number, as you brought up, the number of hunters in the state of Connecticut. She wrote a investigation called "It's Personal: How Your Information is Being Exposed Through FOIA," which also talks about one of the ways we just requested via FOIA all of the hunting and boating licenses. And you can basically create a list of everyone who hunts in the state of Connecticut through that. So some interesting transparency stuff through Catherine's work that is definitely worth your read as well. I'll ask Joe to put that one in the show notes as well. We are now over the 30-minute mark,
Sorry.
which means we'll make a few edits for our radio production here as well. To everyone tuning in, though, huge thank you for your support. I mean that for folks who donate, those who read, those who just share our stories because you trust that we are able to provide in-depth, worthwhile information. So thankful for all of you. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your December. We will do one more show. It will not be live. It'll be recorded right around, I believe the next show would otherwise be on Christmas morning. And we're just going to spare everyone on our team from trying to do something like that. I appreciate all of you. Have a wonderful few weeks. We'll be back then. Be well, stay safe, and stay informed.